if you actually remember watching Saturday Night Live, there was an episode on, and it was called Coffee Talk, and it's very, very funny. So all y'all, if you don't watch Saturday Night Live reruns of all the oldies but goodies, that is one that, so whenever I say Coffee Talk, I always have to feel like I have to do it like this, like funny accent. And I have to go back and watch that because it is just so classic. But that's a
there are so many memes
or Coffee
on,
Talk.
There are memes
so
on
many memes.
SNL, and I actually, I can't recall it being a huge part of my childhood. I'm sure I would have watched one or so. I think it was on, but I think I would probably went to bed or something, so would not have caught it. But yeah,
it always made me. Well, it makes me think about every time that we jump on and we're podcasting. I always think about the opportunity when you're in a space like this. We talked about this last time, but like what the concept of coffee, because I think we had this conversation about like a coffee burst, how I think not only is it how I doctor up my coffee, which then led to a whole lot of people asking me a million questions about what I put in my coffee and how I do it. And now I'm basically at the end of this have like 11 things that now I add to my coffee in the morning. I think last week I had 3 or 4 and now I have 5. It seems like a very good place to mix it all
dump everything in.
Dump everything in. But I also think that just the whole concept of like meeting somebody for coffee is just the best way to connect. And so this is really good. But I was thinking, you know, a client asked me this, and perhaps I asked her first, but I'll ask you, you know, she's a lawyer and she doesn't really like being a lawyer, but so I said, why did you end up doing it? She said, well, my parents were both lawyers, and they told me they really they encouraged me, they kind of pushed me to become a lawyer. And I said, that's interesting. She's like, it's fun. I just don't really love it. You know, it's just not it's not my passion. It's like, so I said, well, what is your passion? It was this completely interesting thing. She was talking about, she's like, I really want to get into like linguistics. I mean, she knew exactly what her passion was. She was like, I really want to study language. She was like, she has a young kid. He's like 2. And she's like, I love watching him learn how to speak. And then it just made me think how many of us are actually like kind of doing our quote unquote passions. How many of us are like, are not doing it, but know exactly what that is, but may not be doing it. So I'll ask you, do you feel that you are kind of, first of all, do you know what your passion is? Like if you had the dream job, do you know what it is? Are you doing it? And if not, what is it?
Yeah, such a great question. And I had this conversation actually the other day with someone when we were talking about available jobs in certain areas. So me, for one, 100% I'm living my dream life. Like I really am. And I'm so fortunate to be able to make a living actually helping people. And I feel really blessed for doing that. And I'm continually stimulated and to learn more, to share more. So super, super stoked. But, you know, you hear people with this almost glib saying like, if you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life. I mean, well, that's BS, isn't it? It's such bullshit. Like there's always behind the scenes admin that you can't do anything about. You just, you know, like, so, and you can't always farm that stuff off to anyone else. So I think, and there are always mundane parts of the job, like, and luckily I have gotten rid of a lot of them, and I've become more choosy about what I do too. So I make decisions and then I, you know, but I constantly think about what I want to do and where I want to be. Equally though, my dad is a cleaner. He has been a cleaner forever. He used to be a bank manager until I was about 12. Then he retired effectively from the bank because he'd been there for 20 years. And now he cleans. And so he finds his passion outside of his work because you can't be passionate about cleaning. And he loves music and he loves learning and he loves history and he loves walking and all of those things. So I don't know that you necessarily have, like, I think living a life that fills your cup, whether it's from work or not, I think hopefully that's what people are able to at least work towards.
When your dad left, when he left his job, like managing a bank, and then he went in to do cleaning, why did he make that jump from there to there? And actually, ironically, when you told me that he found his passion outside of cleaning, for a brief second, I almost thought you were going to say, he kind of like, he finds cleaning therapeutic, like it's cathartic. He's sort of alone in his head and he can just kind of like, kind of do what he needs to do. But why did he end up doing that job from after retiring from the bank?
Yeah. Oh, he does not feel that at all about cleaning. It is literally just cleaning. I
was optimistic.
I know you were, it was just the thing that was available at the time. And then it was something that you didn't necessarily need another skill set for. And he was really not happy in whatever you were doing as a bank manager, whatever skill set you needed for that. Because he went from high school to working in a bank to working his way up. I don't know that you can do that nowadays in banking, but you could do it back then. So I think he sort of fell into it, Jess. And now he does it, and he's old enough to get both a pension and work. So that's helpful for him. And he can still work, actually, which is really great. What about you? Are you doing what you're passionate about?
Yeah, she asked me this question, and I told her that, to be, really honest, professionally, the two things that I really love, and that I can continue. I mean, if you ask me like what my dream would be continuing to podcast. I love this podcast to continue to like grow. And quite frankly, I'd love to like be this version of Mel Robbins, you know what I mean? And like us, right? And have different, people come on eventually at some point and have all kinds of things. I really love, and part of my private practice and training, of course I love helping people get stronger, but I really love the way they think. That's like such an interesting study to me. So that's the door that I chose to like enter in, was the door of building strength, truly, or helping people build strength. But equally, I love people's stories around that, right? Like not even the story about how they feel about strength, but just their stories. And so I love to understand people in that way. And so the idea that I can continue to just be in spaces where I can be as curious as I possibly can, because to me, asking questions and being able to really deep dive is how we understand life. This is like the most amazing vehicle for that. So that's what I love. I mean, so those two things are like the things that completely light me up. Just like anything to running a business, like I would love to do less of the mundane things, less of the things that don't, generate that kind of joy, or really just are like my superpowers. I'd love to spend a lot more time activating just superpowers, which to me are that, like, I think connecting and questioning and being able to kind of, better understand people and just to explore. There's so much to explore. Like life isn't long enough. And I just want to be able to like bring as much, unique energy and ways of asking questions and ways of connecting as possible. So for sure. And I wanted to continue to do things that allowed me to integrate having a family, because that's my other great passion, is like, being a parent. But I think professionally speaking, running a practice where I'm helping women and men build strength, and in ways that also allow for human connectivity, and to be able to have platforms like podcasts and things of that nature, and programs that are just scalable. So thousands of people can benefit from what I continue to learn and relearn. And that's powerful to me. That's completely powerful. So when I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I want that. So like, this isn't all that far off from like, I wanted to literally like, be in there interviewing all the athletes,
Yeah, cool.
like, speaking on ESPN. So this is like a little bit of that.
Yeah. Nice one.
It's a little bit of that dream,
And, when I was young, I think I wanted to be like a lawyer or a receptionist, actually, which is just two completely different
wanted to answer
things.
Phones and push all those buttons.
Yeah, I did totally. And I wanted to dress up nice.
Tempting. What? Yeah. And you want to dress up nice.
Yeah, basically. And both of those professions tended to do that I saw.
They do. I love the stereotypes of just jobs that we don't even know kind of what they exist in. But I did think it was an interesting question, and it did make me think about how, that I wonder in the course of the people that I'm around, how much of what they're doing is actually their passion and how much of, you know, what they're doing is not. And then can they even identify what that looks like? I think that's an important question that people should like spend a little bit of time asking. And just the continual concept that they'll lament this one decision that they didn't do. And I just think that one thing that's very powerful about entrepreneurship and being in the space that you and I are in, Mikki, is that there's constant reinventions of like self, you know, and what we're doing. And if this particular thing, works and we want to add a little bit to that, then we go forth, and move that. But what I do know is how we tend to our bodies is like the most powerful thing. So some way to be able to like work within that, I think is like really cool. So I think it is a neat thing, but I think it is worth asking and re-asking.
I completely agree. And, it's what you say about sort of living in or working with your body and strengthening your body, which is not what you said, but I'm sort of paraphrasing, like regardless, like if you are doing what you're passionate about, but you're not looking after yourself, then you're not going to get that full enjoyment, are you?
No. And I think how you continue to, and I've been also like lately, I don't know if I'm sure there's things that you've come across. I'll ask you this question too, but, whether it's in a podcast or a conversation with somebody, or there's always something in the course of my week. And I think, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to Mix about this, or I can't wait to like process this. But I was listening to something the other day, and it was a reminder. She was a therapist, and she was like, look, the words you say are super important. So I've been a little more mindful about the words that I say, and certainly the way that I speak about myself, because I've been running some pretty deep narratives and things, and you kind of forget they're just really damaging, and your brain doesn't forget it. So then it gets locked in there. Right. And then you just repeat it, and therefore it becomes true. And I just don't want some of the things that I sometimes have said or do to continue to be true, because I don't actually think they're true in spite of what I might say.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you come across anything like that's just kind of resonated for you as of late, like maybe who knows? I mean, I know you and I are both talking about this earlier, because your day in and day life is very, very clinical, and mine tends to be a little bit less clinical, a little more emotional, right? So we're like good yin yang. But has there been anything that you've read or you've talked to somebody, and it can be clinical too, like, shit, I didn't know that. You think you're like a mineral or some shit, would sounded kind of cool, but what have you come across lately?
My job is really emotional too, actually. I didn't mean to, when we were having that conversation, I just meant to say that I wasn't only on one topic, and it wasn't just perimenopause. There are so many other things which I'm able to dive into, because I do writing for companies on certain things and all the rest of it. But it is that there is obviously some sort of clinical element, but mindset is everything. And I talk to people all the time about the narrative, because like we're just finished up with one of my programs, and I'm onboarding them onto a different one for some of them. And it's very easy to, when you're in it, to be implementing the diet strategy, to be implementing the exercise. But if you haven't yet done the work on the mindset or begun that, then actually you're just sort of setting yourself up to fail, aren't you? Because that deep set mind, those deep set narratives, which have sort of kept you in a place for years, like they haven't gone just because you've had the support of a program. You've had a mantra that you've been saying to yourself, like 8 weeks or 16 weeks or 24 weeks isn't enough to unravel that sort of mindset. So it's, I think understanding that, I think, is a real win for people, because they can then get to the bottom. They can begin to get to the bottom of what keeps them stuck in a place, because we've all got narratives around.
How often do you feel like you can get people unstuck from a place?
I think I have conversations with people every day and about it, that then their eyes sort of like light up. But it takes years. Like, it's not just a conversation. It is like these people are in your ecosystem for years. And I think those are people who I see now, like some of my earlier members and clients, I see that there's a real shift in them, and they see it too. but other people, it's just a work on, isn't it? Like all of these things, like you can't. And that's why, and I mentioned to you exposure therapy actually, and you were like, oh, I like that. What's that?
I love that. I don't even know what it is, but it sounds good.
And the context I meant it in, like I was using it inaccurately when we were talking, but actually like you expose yourself to different ways of thinking and different ways of doing things. And you can't, and it's not just a matter of like listening to a podcast or reading. It's actually, and I talk to people about daily exposure to different ideas and different ways of thinking, because you have to rewrite that script somehow. And it doesn't just happen just by going, right, I'm not going to think that anymore. That's not how you do it.
Definitely doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, but explain, I'm a little bit, I'm actually very intrigued with this. What does it say to help you kind of, I love the concept of like mini exposures. What's a little bit more around the framework of that?
Well, it's like the more that you're exposed to different ways of thinking, the differently you think.
Genius.
Isn't it? And I mean, it's, you know what? I've
but
seen
even this tonight, this is like a version of exposure therapy for me, right? Because it's just like another way to like frame it, another way to like think about it. Yeah. I think that's kind of incredible. So just the practices around that is literally that, like, is it daily, like daily exposure therapy? Is it like,
like, I'm not talking to you about it in a way that you would find in a textbook. I'm sure that there is a very clinical way to do it, but how I talk to people, it has to be daily. Like, it has to be something that, because if it's not, then it's too easy to get back to default ways of thinking and behaving. But you actually have to have that friction, because it is a friction initially. Like, it's different and it feels uncomfortable. It might feel inauthentic at first, or like because you're going against what your inner thoughts or your feelings are, but you have to do it daily to remove the friction, so you do start to sort of buy into it. Like I am successful at business, or I am successful in weight loss, or I am a strong individual, or I am someone who exercises. But you might not believe it at first, but you be it till you see it.
Well, I think I think it is. I think, to your point, there's two isms that sometimes I think are kind of funny, but one is the business one we used earlier, like if you love it, you never work a day in your life kind of thing. And then the other one is, there's a little bit of that, like, that mantra of like, fake it till you make it. But I don't even really believe that I'm faking it. It's more that it's just that, like, I'm inviting this narrative in. I'm inviting this form of, like, using the words that feel more inspiring, but also like empowering, right? Like, because to me, that's what it continues to come back to. I mean, I always think about every time when we jump on our podcast and I look at our title and I'm like, I love it that we pick Strength Renewed, because every day is a little opportunity for a small renewal, right? Like, you're renewing your body, renewing the way you're thinking. And if you do that, it's like, there's a whole lot more open to you. You know what I mean? It's not like just these like 4 freeways to get to where you go. You have like 16, when you do that. Yeah. But I just like, I think I love what you said. Mine was, words are really powerful. So just like, be super mindful of the word you're using. And I love this concept of exposure therapy. And of course, what we're both doing is very heavy in, behavioral therapy too, right? We're dealing with people. They're not robots. You know what I mean? And so everybody's got their own, they carry these, very hardwired behaviors when it comes to like the work we do. So yes, you have to kind of meet them wherever they are, whatever that looks like. But I think the concept of like trying things on a little differently is really, really, really like kind of a cool concept to me. So I appreciated hearing that tonight, because I was like, oh yeah, I like this. I like the idea of that. Yeah. And you're just saying it's like it's just a constant way of practicing habits that may not be second nature to you, basically.
But they become second
then
nature.
They can become, that's the concept. So I'm just trying to think of, because part of what I always appreciate about conversations together is that, again, we take a lot of information and try to condense it to a bite-sized piece so that you can feel successful eating that, because it's a lot more digestible to take a little bit. But I know one thing that when I listen to your voice in my head and we talk about nutrition or health, I always ask the why. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'll think, do I want to go to the same behavior as always? Or Mikki will say it in my head. She'll be like, well, no, you don't really need to the chocolate almonds. You can have a little like a protein shake instead. Like, and that'll just give you a whole lot more for you, right? So just like a different way of leading. But
Yeah.
I like that. And that sounds like that's working for you too.
And I will say, and we'll just finish up with, I mean, you said fake it till you make it. That's different.
It's very different.
Be it till you see it.
It's be it till you see it. And that's why that's really why I thought those two things were, they don't resonate for me. You'll never work a day in your life if you love what you do.
Yeah.
Doesn't resonate for me. And fake it till you make it never really resonated for me either, because I'm not, first of all, I'm like the most authentic human possible. So like faking is kind of just not what I do, but I like what you just said. So say it one more time.
Yeah. Be it till you see it.
Be it till you see it.
Amazing. Nice, Jess.
What are you grateful for today?
It's nice to be asked the question of, are you doing what you're passionate about? Because you're just reminded of the fact that, you are. So I'm grateful for that. How about you?
That I love, this. It's probably the same as you. I will never, ever feel anything other than a whole lot of gratitude for this, for us, for this, and for the ability to talk about the things that I think are super helpful for people. I'm so
100%.
grateful to be able to share it. I mean, it's really outstanding. I'm also I'm particularly grateful for sports, watching sports on TV. People were having this conversation because there's a big, and if you follow NCAA basketball, the final championship was tonight, and I was thinking about that because sometimes it's nice to have these things in like sports to just kind of rally around, no matter what's sort of happening in the world, or like it's just such like a nice thing to bring people together, and you just see the most incredible, like, just mental grit and physical prowess. And it's just nice. So I was sort of grateful in that moment to like be super inspired by NCAA basketball and like watching that. So living out your dreams, this podcast with you, and sports.
I love it. Nice, Jess. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too.